Hello and welcome back to the lead pile. On this video we're going to be focusing on the bright and colourful armies of the Napoleonic era by painting dark green. Yeah, it could only be the 95th Rifles. We'll be painting Richard Sharpe and his merry men in the 6mm. And so here are the models themselves. These are 6mm metal models from Baccus, and these are Napoleonic rifles. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start by watering down our paint, and I'm just going to use a light, very pale shade of skin color here. Now normally I would use a base color first, and then I would highlight up, but because these are 6mm, just take a shade, a couple of paints lighter than what you would maybe normally use. That's because you really want the colour to pop. So it doesn't need to be a white skin tone. Whatever skin colour you want to use is fine, obviously. Just pick a shade of paint, a couple of tones lighter than you'd use on a 28mm model, so that it stands out more. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to apply our main colour to these models, and that is Militarium Green contrast paint. Now, the contrast paints or Army Painter speed paints work really well because they're a watered down wash in effect, and they get into the nooks and crannies on these very small minis, and that basically applies a bit of a highlight and a bit of shading and saves you a job. This colour in particular is perhaps lighter than what you would normally use, again, for 28mm, so larger models, but because they're smaller scale, we want to really make them pop, and that's something which we're going to be repeating throughout this, picking a shade of colour that's maybe a little bit lighter than what you would use in 28mm. And so I'm just going around and just picking out all the areas of the uniform, so that's the jacket and the trousers, in this green. Another advantage to painting small-scale 6mm models is that by using a little bit of blue tack, you can stick several of these stands on either a lollipop stick or a coffee stirrer, and you're able to batch paint several models in very quick succession. Here I'm just painting 4 for the ease of this video, but you could easily paint up to 20 individual models all at the same time. This is Snakebite Leather. It's a really nice warm shade of brown, and I'm going to use that to pick out all of the backpacks and any other leather details that are on the miniature. Now you can choose here to use a different shade of brown for each individual bag and satchel, but just for ease, and because, like I say, this is about painting a unit rather than just individual models, I'm painting it all with this contrast paint here. And once you've got those leather details painted in, I'm now going to take a different shade of brown. This one is Baneblade Brown, again Games Workshop, but just use any paint, just make sure you water it down when using these small miniatures. And I'm just going to be painting in the gunpowder cartridge here. There is a proper name for whatever this bit is. At first I thought it was a war horn, so it shows my Napoleonic knowledge, but essentially I believe this is where they keep the gunpowder. And next I'm just going to be painting their watering can. Not a garden watering can, but the water that they take out in the field, and I'm going to be painting that in with silver. Now, again, you could look up official photographs and look through, well, maybe not photographs, but look through official drawings and Osprey books, etc., to get accurate details of what you want to paint for these miniatures. But it is your hobby, you paint them however you want them to look, and at this scale, realistically, you're not going to be able to tell the tiny details anyway. And following on from that, we're taking out another contrast paint. This one is Black Templar, and we're just going to be using that to pick out their cap. Now, once you've painted the hat in black, I'm now going to take out another shade of brown here, and I'm going to paint in the rifle. I'm going to paint the whole thing with this brown color. Now, obviously, there are metal details on this rifle, but I'm just going to be painting in brown. And to be honest with you, you could paint these miniatures just with one shade of brown. You could use brown for all of the backpacks and packages, and the rifle, the same shade of brown if you want for even quicker speed. But I'm just showing how you can pick out different parts of the models in different color just to get a little bit of variation there. Now, with the rifles painted, what's left on the miniature are just a few of the extra details. So here I'm taking out kind of a shadowy blue, and I'm just going to use that to paint their mat, which is on top of the backpack. And again, you can use any colour you want really, but I like the blue here. I think it contrasts quite well with the green of the main jacket, and this is a really easy bit to paint. Okay, so hopefully that has been fairly straightforward so far. Like I say, we're basically just colouring in this model. We're finding the main parts to paint in the main shades of colour. And you could leave it at that. But what we're going to do now is some of the fine detail work. And so we're going to start off with the facings and the cuffs and the collars. So that I'm going to use red. Now the 95th rifles traditionally I believe were more of a dark shade of black, blue, but I'm using red here based on the fact that one, it stands out quite well against the green, and it does feature in Captain Fredrickson's rifles in the Sharpe film too. So what you want to do with the red is just put a blob in between the hand and the sleeve, and that does quite well for the cuffs. You don't need to paint fine details, don't worry about it. Now there are details on this model, the Baccus models are very detailed, but don't worry if you don't paint the exact part in red. No one is going to be looking at these models up within a few centimeters of their eyes. They're going to be a good couple of feet away on the table, and they're going to be in mass ranks. So don't worry about it, just put the paint where you think it best goes, and it's going to look great. So with the trickiest part of the paint out of the way, now is the most fun part. It's where you get to add some sparkle, and you paint in the gold. Now again, these would not likely have been gold, it could have been brass or just metallic, but I like to add a bit of gold to my models. So I'm just painting the handles there on their bayonets, and I'm also going to paint the cap badges as well in gold. Okay, and now we're going to do a little bit of touching up, I suppose. We're going back a stage and we're repainting in the wee cap feathers here with a white shade. So I'm using a white base colour. This is Wraithbone from Citadel, but any basic white colour will do. And that's because I'm going to be painting this green again. So I want to get a heavy white which will cover the black. Done. You can leave it there and they look perfect for the tabletop. However, what we're going to do now is just show you how you can, if you choose to, step it up a little bit and just make those colours pop. So I'm just taking a lighter shade of green and I'm just going to essentially dab on the raised areas of the jacket. So that's on the elbows, the arms, the knees with that green shade. I'm not repainting the entire thing, I'm just dabbing on dots of paint. Keep your miniatures close up when you're painting, obviously, because it's not the easiest to see, but every now and again hold them out at arm's length, because that's a much better reflection on what you're going to see on the table. And I decided that the green wasn't strong enough, so I've gone for an even lighter shade here just to touch up those highlights. With that done, I'm now taking again a lighter shade of blue. Now you can just add some white to your original blue if you want, and I'm just going to put on a little dab, a little line on top of that rolled up mat. Now this next step is entirely optional. I don't always do it, but I'm showing you here how you can. and that is to apply a brown wash to the skin tone. Now what this will do is we'll add some definition and shading to those features, and then you can use your original colour of skin tone to pick out the raised areas. It just adds a bit of definition. And with that, the models are done. Now, like I said, you could leave them at the initial stage, having applied the base coats, or you can add those highlights. With me, brighter is best. For 6mm, it helps them pop out and stand out on the table. Well, there we go. 6mm Napoleonics. The advantage to this scale, of course, is that you could paint hundreds and hundreds of these in surprisingly little time. Painting these 4 models didn't take much more than 20 minutes, and that is half the time that it normally takes me to paint one 28mm basic infantry model. So you can really crack out a lot of models in a short period of time, and that really wasn't that difficult either. Now yes, they're not perfect. Yes, the highlights are just a blob of a lighter colour paint, but when you zoom out, they do look quite good considering the size that these models are. And at the end of the day, that's all that we're after. So hopefully this video has shown you that painting much smaller scale miniatures can be perhaps a bit of a challenge, a bit daunting at first, but it really isn't that difficult. It's just about painting the unit, not the individual model. You're getting an impression of the colour that you want on the miniature, where you want it, but at the end of the day these are going to be based up with another at least 4 bases of 4 units. So you're just getting a general impression, and at a distance, I mean they're that small it won't even focus up front, but at a distance that is going to be very effective on the battlefield. And I really didn't use a magnifying glass, I promise, and I didn't use a really small brush either, as you saw in the videos. So it's definitely worth a shot. Give it a go, and you might find that you've just opened the door to a whole new style of wargaming. So thanks to Baccus for these 6mm miniatures. I'm not sponsored by them, I did buy them, but they're lovely metal miniatures, and there's a whole variety out there, so get yourself some 6mm and get painting.